Welcome back to the Marketing Moment with DB and Partners. I am your host, David Barry, and you came to us last week. Hopefully you have for multiple weeks now, and it was just me. But I'm really excited this week to have back with me Julia Reynolds, my co-host, but we're without Nicole Williams today. I know you guys are probably real sad about that as well. We are at our best when we're full force with all three, but Julia and I are promising to deliver a great episode to you today, where we are going to talk about e-commerce trends in the skincare industry. And I'll talk a little bit more about our relationship to this specific category when we get to the topic. But without further ado, I'm going to kick it off to Julia in just a second with our headlines for the week. But if you're a first-time listener, what I want to call out here is what we say in every episode, that DB and Partners is a e-commerce digital media agency focusing on scaling brands for the brain and body. So that's our specialty. That's the core of what we do. And it should come as no surprise then that skincare is for the body. So we have a lot to say about that category. And as I mentioned, we'll get into that here in just a second. But Julia, we have a couple of headlines for our folks today, and we'd love for you to kick that off for them. So tell them what you got.
Yeah, so jumping into our first headline for the Digital Dash is TikTok and Instagram inch closer to the streaming wars as competitive barriers blur. So it's no surprise that Instagram wants to be more like TikTok. Obviously, TikTok is incredibly successful. And so last week, the head of Instagram said that they are, quote, "We're no longer a photo sharing app or a Square photo sharing app." They're going to start expanding their formatting, and they're going to be offering test experiments that include full screen recommended videos, which is a key staple of TikTok and the For You page, as the platform starts transitioning into a more video-based sharing app.
That's, what are your thoughts? Because I know I'm usually the one running my mouth, but you are our in-house TikTok resident expert. So, and you're a big Instagram user, because I know we've mentioned this before, but you're an influencer there with your Julia's Plantstagram.
Yes.
Well, that's not the official name, but yeah, I mean, as a user of both, as somebody who gets a lot of mileage out of both, what are your thoughts on this?
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all that Instagram would want to copy TikTok. Instagram obviously already copied Snapchat with stories, however many years ago at this point.
Yeah.
And everyone was kind of like, that's so ridiculous. They're just copycats, whatever. And now people use Instagram stories way more than they use Snapchat stories. Right. So I don't think it'll be the death of TikTok as it kind of overtook Snapchat, but I'm not surprised. I don't think Instagram has the scrolling capabilities as someone who has reached the end of my timeline, which was a horrifying moment to be like, wow, I've literally looked at everything 1,000 people have posted in the past, 2 days.
Must have been a tough time for you.
It was mid-pandemic, but I can't say it didn't happen pre-pandemic too.
That's fine. And now you're healing.
Yes, exactly. My screen time has gone down. I've set limits, but TikTok doesn't have that. TikTok, you can scroll for eternity and on your For You page. And I think that is something Instagram wants. And so I'm not surprised that they'll start integrating this. So what do you think?
I'm going to join you and say, I'm also not surprised because all of the channels at this point are in a quote unquote stage of maturity. I think, well, I'm making a generalization, but you're right. Instagram has copied features from others, and TikTok, has kind of taken some things that already existed successfully with other apps in the past as well. Vine and Musical.ly, or really Musical.ly became TikTok, but that's a conversation for another day. But I think Instagram is going to be successful, but to your point, not nearly as successful as TikTok has been because of the feed. It's such a key point of what makes TikTok really unique. Instagram has been like messing with discovery for a really long time as it is, but it's never been in the feed. And I also don't think Instagram's discovery feature is as powerful as TikTok's is.
I agree.
That algorithm is just madness. So if Instagram can't just put on the lipstick, they have to find an engineering solution that lets people find real discoverable content that they're really interested in. That's the key difference. But this is not like Twitter and Fleets, which, by the way, they announced yesterday in a tweet that they're getting rid of. It's, Twitter is not going to make a lot of things happen that other channels do. Not that we're talking about them, but I think Instagram's going to have success here, but it's going to be short-lived if they can't figure out the algorithm side of things for discovery. So we'll see. But I'm interested. I do think Instagram has become stale for a lot of people. I'm overstating that perhaps, but stale only because they have experiences on other channels that they couldn't get before. And now that they can, Instagram kind of feels static and almost stuck in place. So kudos to them for recognizing that. I think they could have done it sooner. My guess is they've been addressing this for a while, but let's wait and see.
Yeah. I mean, we already saw them kind of step on TikTok's territory with Reels, and people were like, this is ridiculous. And look, now everybody makes Reels. So
here we are. We're talking to somebody who makes Reels, Reels.
Yeah. So for our second headline, Facebook is luring content creators with $1 billion in payments. And this is from TechCrunch. So Facebook announced plans to pay content creators more than $1 billion by the end of next year through new bonus programs designed to keep creatives plugged into its app ecosystem. The bonus programs will have a dedicated hub within the Instagram app later this summer and in the Facebook app later this year, and it'll be invite only.
Interesting. So when I read this, I was curious because I know like YouTube seems to be the channel that's most obviously monetized within the platform, because the users who have the ability to integrate ads into their content kind of know pretty quickly like the relationship between the ads and their own compensation. So I'll put you on the spot here a little bit. Do you have a sense of how Facebook and Instagram are planning to roll out this monetization and what that might look like?
So I've seen some things on Instagram talking about sort of linking the shop features that Instagram has to profiles. So combining the sort of affiliate link programs that they have where you can link it in your bio or in a link tree and their shop feature. So it would be an affiliate link through Instagram.
Interesting. Okay. So this one potentially, I mean, I guess we'll see as it rolls out, but it sounds like this one will be more shopper oriented than content creator oriented, which is where YouTube really has they've monetized attention, whereas Facebook and Instagram have monetized commerce or rather prioritized it, I should say. So I'm curious to see, like the content creators, for example. I mean, Facebook has been a channel for like the Red Table. I think that's what it's called, with Jada Pinkett and her daughter and her mom. So I wonder if they're going to monetize, content like that as well that doesn't have obvious shopper integrations. But yeah, I think it's a no-brainer. Especially, we preach all the time to our clients and here on this podcast the value of influence, the value of collaborations and partnerships, and the more that brands can or rather the channels can find ways to easily monetize those relationships within the platform, then it's better for them too, because they're transacting the dollars on their site versus somebody, like us currently, we would be negotiating with an influencer offline for a brand or whatever the case is. It obviously becomes a lot more easy also to track the value of those relationships if they're in the channel, because Facebook has the ability to say, well, yeah, so-and-so did click on this, specific post or this specific product and they purchased it, and we can attribute that. So I think that's probably where Facebook is going, and we've seen evidence of it already.
Yeah. So, and it seems that, not to keep dogging on Facebook and Instagram for copying TikTok, but TikTok has the Creator Fund, which is similar in that it pays out to creators for hitting certain milestones and views, likes, comments, things like that. And so it seems that they will be doing that. They're also doing sort of like a Twitch style money gathering system where viewers would be able to send tips in exchange for fan perks. And then it says that it will offer bonuses to users who enable IGTV ads, which is interesting because I thought IGTV was dying according to Instagram, and I thought IGTV was on its way out.
Well, that might signal the types of content creation that they're prioritizing, and they must see something in the data that the rest of us haven't seen that indicates that that's still a viable channel to push into. I do imagine that monetization is a great incentive for people to mess with the format more, but I'm actually surprised that they didn't make a bigger emphasis on Reels, for example, because that actually has proven to be something that people are diving into, and maybe that'll happen, but time will tell.
Yeah. So that's in today's news of how Facebook and Instagram are copying TikTok and everyone else.
I think that's maybe what we should rename this segment moving forward. So
yeah,
but we'll put a pin in that.
We'll see how it goes, and then we'll jump into our main segment, which is talking about skincare.
Yes, this is your entree, as I like to say. The main course, e-commerce trends in the skincare industry. So thanks for sticking through our headlines, or if you just scanned ahead for the meat of the content, you're at the right point. So I did a little bit of Googling for this one, so I'm going to hit you with a couple fast facts at the beginning. A couple things to know. The skincare category is projected to reach 200 billion in sales in the next 5 years. That's a lot of money between 2018 and 2026, which we're kind of sandwiched in the middle of right now. The global skincare market is projected to grow by more than 50%. And on top of that, skincare is the top selling category on all of Amazon, which in this massive space of Amazon, to understand which one is really at the top of the heap is pretty substantial, that skincare is leading that pack. So now, I'm not here to regale you with a bunch of facts that you could Google just as I did, but as an e-com agency with several clients in the skincare vertical, as I mentioned at the start, we care a lot about this space, and we like to think we know quite a bit about it as well. So here comes a couple humble brags, but we've managed for more than 3 years. We've been around for 5 years, but for more than 3 years, we've managed digital strategy, influencer strategy, creative strategy, paid media strategy and execution, and social media and programmatic to Amazon ads. That's a long-winded statement, but one client had 4x returns for 3 years and ongoing, and another just saw 26x returns on Amazon Prime Day. So yes, I'm a little humble bragging, and Julia can kick me from beneath the proverbial table. But the reason I mention it is because we really are passionate about the skincare space, because our clients are in it, and we do think we're good at it. So to the extent that we're authorities on it as well, we think we're coming from a place of first person experience. So let's really actually dive into what you want to hear versus us talking about ourselves. But a couple things. The skincare category is expanding, and I just gave you those stats, but because of that, competition is expanding as well. And the strength of it is getting better too. So there's a ton of players, right? The L'Oreals and Sephora's and Cliniques of the world are the big players, and they're sharpening their knives for a fight because clients like ours are on the up and up and taking away not necessarily the core of their business, but they're biting off little chunks of it here and there, which could be like death by 1,000 paper cuts, so to speak. But that goes to say that if you're a skincare brand and you're going to really compete in this space, you really intend to make a name for yourself, then you've got to be prepared for a fight. And I don't mean that to sound, dramatic or hyperbolic, but the other emerging players are doing a lot of those things really well. They're eating away at the market share of the larger players by doing the things that they won't. So let's talk about a couple of things that those players are doing. And frankly, some of the bigger ones are as well. The first thing I'm going to say is, if you don't blow your customers away with personalized experiences, someone else is going to. And to that end, what I think, personalization looks like is in a couple of things. Some of it, these next stats I'm going to give you, are personalization oriented, and others are more product based, but it all kind of lends itself to a unique experience for the customer. So number one, augmented and virtual reality are putting products on faces without people leaving home. And I'll talk about each of these a little bit more in depth as we go. Number two, subscription services are projected to grow 72% more before 2023. And we're halfway through 2021. So we're talking 18 months and 72% jump. That's a substantial amount in just that short window. Clean beauty is growing 5 times as fast for brands that are free of parabens and are all natural. And to that end, 60% of women would be willing to spend on new brands if they offered such natural products. 3 more bullets to go. Real influencers, when leveraged properly, can return 11x on the investment. One of the skincare brands that we work with is Sonia Dakar. I'm not going to be so bold as to call them an early adopter in this space, but what I will say is they were among the first to really nail this, of making sure that those influencer relationships were, pun intended, not just skin deep. They are legitimate, and these influencers are collaborating on the products that are created for them to actually use, and their followers know it's real. And to that end, I think influencers go really closely with brand collaborations, which is our next bullet, and they're hot too. They can be, when done well, 30 times cheaper than digital advertising alone, because you're tapping into 2 separate audiences that are adjacent and related, but you also have the authority and credibility that comes with working with another brand that's saying, we believe in this product, they believe in ours, and that authenticity speaks for itself. And then the last bullet here before we start explaining in some detail, personalization, which is the thing I mentioned before I got onto this, is it's not a nice to have anymore. It's mandatory. 8 out of 10 surveyed consumers in the skincare space said they have purchased personalized skincare. So if I could summarize all of this into one sentence, it would be this: skincare customers want clean, natural products behind an authentic story with a brand that's impossibly easy to engage. So I'm going to hit the pause button on myself for a second there and say, Julia, I don't know your interaction with the skincare industry as a consumer beyond your involvement as a marketer, but are there any surprises in what I said? And frankly, are there any other things that you've heard or seen, even just anecdotally, that you think are worth calling out here?
I'm a huge skincare person. I love skincare. My sister loves skincare. I frequently get a lot of her expensive skincare that just doesn't work for her that she passes down to me.
It
So I'm
doesn't sound so
very,
bad.
yeah, right. It's a good situation for me, but I love skincare. I think that in my personal, what I've seen on my TikTok For You page, full disclosure, that's where I
Yeah.
get a lot of my
Hey, but
opinions.
this is exactly where the insights get found, or in these little
Yeah.
anecdotes.
Is I think one other sort of small push that's happening is in dermatologist led skincare,
Okay.
dermatologist influencers, if you will. There's one, Dr. Shireen Idris. She is Pillow Talk Derm on Instagram. She has, I want to say, over 200,000 Instagram followers, and she kind of debunks skincare marketing. Sometimes
Interesting.
that sort of like, hey, this is really what you need. This is, the pure products that you should be looking for, the pure ingredients. And so I think that is a big push. And I think people sort of looking past marketing and really being aware of what ingredients, and kind of not just going for that sort of millennial pastel. No offense, millennials, but
Hey, that's all right.
the type of marketing, the type of
I
Instagram
do.
ads I'm talking about.
I
So
do.
I think people are being very hyper vigilant in the marketing that they're seeing for skincare.
I think, it's actually a really interesting insight, because it does reinforce, I think, something that's not even an undercurrent, right? Like we just talked about it. People care about clean products, but it's what you're talking about is, in fact, even a step further. It's not enough to just say they're clean, but it's also to understand why the other stuff is wrong, or it's not suitable.
Mm-hmm.
Clean is great, but like, I think the real strength comes from a differentiation point that separates itself from the alternative, and that's a pretty important insight. I think some more of what we're going to talk about here is probably going to reinforce that. And as I'd mentioned, in my sentence, which I think does bear repeating, but skincare customers want clean, natural products behind an authentic story with a brand that's impossibly easy to engage. So let's use that as a jumping off point for part two of this, which is, I recognize that's maybe an oversimplification, but that doesn't make it less true. But the why, and Julie, I think this is where you were starting to go, the why of those things is just as important, because augmented reality, which I mentioned, for instance, it was growing in popularity, but became a game changer when during COVID, the physical store literally was not an option. So the brands that already had this in place were 10 steps ahead. AR basically lets customers put products on their bodies from their phone, and sometimes they can't even do that in the store. And it's desirable because, well, for some obvious reasons, it's easy, it's accessible, and on top of that, it's beneficial to the brand because it greases the skids on an e-commerce transaction, because you're enabling the trial right there on your site. And I think if a user is that far along and they're putting the product on their face or on their body, then there really aren't that many objections left to them saying, I'm going to buy this thing. But I do want to talk more about the clean beauty stuff, because I think that's a huge element. Chemicals, if I can say so, are starting to scare the shit out of people. As this information becomes like easier to find on the internet, customers, and frankly, through like the doctor that you mentioned, of people creating content around it, customers are growing apprehensive of having like weird goo on their skin. And clean products create trust and confidence too. And they've proven, as I mentioned with some of the stats before, that they'll open their checkbooks a bit wider if you can deliver products like this. And to that end, I think the ultimate opportunity really is through clean beauty and personalization. And so tying those multiple qualities of what people want in a brand right now are probably the avenues forward. So there are a lot of ways to do this, and not all of them are truly personal. They just feel personal, like you've thought of everything and you actually care about your customer. I'm going to talk about some tools that help brands do that. Jebbit is a quiz tool that we love. You can look them up, jebbit.com. It's a quiz tool that we love. We use with some of our clients, and they deliver interactive experiences that lets a user enter their own information with specifics on, in this case, on their skin. And based on how you as a brand code that quiz, it drives these site visitors to the categories or the products that are best suited to their skin condition or their skin type. And customers love it. But so do the brands, because now they have a wealth of first party data that they can use to, you guessed it, send personalized content to you and send personalized product recommendations. And this is, not just about selling also, but we talk about the fact that you have to be obsessed with your customers in order to truly succeed, or at least to put yourself further ahead of your customers. So in addition, now this personalization lets you do need specific videos and tutorials or tips and pointers and stuff like that. So Julia, as a quick aside, I'm curious to see, I personally have not, I've taken Jebbit quizzes as a marketer, but I actually don't think I've taken any as a consumer. Or actually, no, that's not true. I did just take one for a supplement company a couple of weeks ago, but I'm curious if you've had any experiences with personalization, like some of what we're talking about here.
Well, I've taken shampoo and conditioner quizzes for Function of Beauty. I think that was what it was. Yeah,
Mhm.
they have very customizable products. They have like little packets that you can kind of squeeze to your shampoo and
Oh, that's
make it,
cool.
yeah, custom to your hair type. But I think I more often use like Ulta's features where you just do the little check boxes on the side for like oily skin or dry skin
Sure.
or whatever. But yeah, that's my story.
Okay. It's interesting. We're actually going to talk about this on another podcast. But I like the skin, I'm sorry, the shampoo company that you just talked about is a great example, because there are, one of the brands I'm referencing now is Gainful, the one that we'll talk about on another podcast, but they're doing that basically in the supplement space. And people, I think, maybe this is more true in supplementation for nutrition, but I think people are apprehensive and unsure about making the wrong decisions, and they don't want to feel stupid like trying to navigate it. And I'm speaking for myself. I like the idea of skincare, but I don't know where to start. I don't know which order to do it in. Like, does the serum go on first and the eye cream went second or whatever? Like, personalization is a great way to overcome a lot of insecurities or mental objections, if you will, to engaging with the product or the brand. So I think that's I would love to learn a little bit more about the shampoo brand that you're talking about. Ironic, because I don't have any hair, but I'm very intrigued by that. So perfect. So we'll keep going here. The more you know about different categories of customers, the more you can delight them with. And so I guess that reinforces what I'm talking about with personalization, because if you, this first party data collection, I mean, think about the example I just gave with a Jebbit quiz, right? Like, if I can learn a customer's age, physical location, gender, or or skin type and things like that, I know so many things more than brands even 5 years ago would ever learn about their customers, unless they had extensive third party data. And so now, if you have that information, just think of the wealth of content that you can produce for your clients, or your customers rather, in enabling them to understand and use your products to their best benefits. Now you have somebody who knows that this specific item is built for oily skin, for example. They're going to have better outcomes if they know that it's for, I don't know, making it up, but super oily skin versus skin that's maybe just not properly hydrated. There's a difference. And I didn't know until, I got further into this category that oily skin is a real thing, but some people become oily because they don't have, proper hydration in their skin. And that's not true oiliness. It's something else. Okay. So the more you can help solve for those, the better outcomes people are going to have with their products. And that's how you engender loyalty. So to talk a little further about that, there are a few other trends we're monitoring as well. So I would say be sure to check out, future content, because we talk a lot about skincare, and we'll continue to talk about it. But some other things that I want to bring up, and these are a little bit more open-ended before we move to the end of our podcast with the marketing nozzle and the marketing malfunction. But Gen Z and millennials, Julia, you referenced this already. They both groups, I think, technically, if you look at the trends, want all natural and maybe sustainability or a social cause, as we mentioned. But then you look at baby boomers, or really any generation that's aging, and they want age refining. I'm curious to see in you and Gen Z, Julia, and your exposure to us millennials, like what are some of the differences you see between your generation and some of the others? And I know that's changed over time, but how do you think it will continue to change over time? So, like, for example, where do you think your consumption patterns in skincare and things you're going to want are going to go in the next 5 years? And similarly, like, where do you suspect that maybe some of the older demographics are going to go over that same time period?
Well, speaking on behalf of an entire generation,
I
I
like
think
that.
5 years ago, yeah, looking back 5 years ago, we had 2016 makeup, which was intense to say the least. Full foundation, full contour, no blush, no youthfulness to anything.
Hashtag
And
millennial.
yeah,
Mhm.
well, I was part of those trends too.
Oh, all
But
right.
I'll say, the shift in makeup, I think skincare and makeup go hand in hand, but they also kind of balance each other out. So when we have heavy makeup, I feel like the focus is not as much on skincare. And we've kind of drifted away from heavy makeup to more natural looking makeup, which by default prioritizes skincare and making sure that your skin just looks, you woke up like this, millennial moment, hashtag.
Oh
Um,
gosh.
so, I think that has been the shift over the past 5 years. And so, maybe we'll see a shift back into heavy makeup. I think that another possibility is kind of a blend of the makeup skincare. I know Clinique kind of had that a couple years ago where it's okay, this is foundation, but it's also good for your skin. And it's got these like oils and, whatever sort of blend of skincare. So maybe that's what we'll see in the next 5 years.
Interesting. Yeah, I think, and again, we're guessing, right? But there's enough evidence to think that these guesses could be on the right track. But for me personally, and I know this, I've read this somewhere, I just can't really source it right now, but I think one of the biggest emerging differences between Gen Z and millennials is, maybe I'm disagreeing or slightly agreeing, I'm not sure, but is like a decrease in interest in cosmetics among the younger demos. And maybe it's not a total decrease in interest, but I think maybe you did touch on this, but it's among those still buying cosmetics, maybe the motivation has changed. So like cosmetics, to your point, there was this very heavily contoured foundation heavy, standard of beauty. And now I think the way, like the Clinique reference that you had mentioned, is maybe more of a form of expression versus an attempt to model like this standard. Like you can be an individual to kind of showcase a hybrid of just caring for your skin and having that dewy,
Mm-hmm.
fresh look, perhaps, versus something that's heavily packaged, so to speak, to look like an Instagram norm. So I do think that that's going to continue. 5 years is equal parts a long time and also not a long time. But this space in particular moves really quickly, and all it takes is a handful of influencers to hop onto a trend that they really find appealing to move an entire industry into a different direction pretty quickly. But my suspicion is that if you look at the natural beauty stuff that we talked about before, that's going to, I don't think that you can do as heavy in a lot of like the coloring type of stuff, for example, with all natural products. But that could be part of me being a little naive. But I think, yeah, expression, personalization, and just having fun with clean, healthy skin versus performative skin is to me where part of this is going.
Mm-hmm. I
So
agree.
yeah, and the last thing I'll mention, we don't necessarily have to go super in depth here, but we'll talk about this at a later date. But there's also this intersection because of clean beauty. People are also starting to realize that there's a relationship between the things that they consume, whether it's food, alcohol, or both, that affects their health and including their skin. So they tell you, cigarettes are bad for your skin, alcohol is bad for your skin, and maybe chocolate in small dosages, but too much chocolate is bad too. I don't know, but I think that's maybe another trend where I'm actually most interested, not just in the small nuances about what they're buying, but the integration of the body into beauty products and wellness, tying into it, because there are already products that you're seeing marketed the way food is marketed, like products that are vegan or gluten free, and mainstream brands are sort of like tying into this. There's a brand, I think out of California, called Juice Beauty, and their food, I'm sorry, they say their products are actually edible, because it's a lot of it is based on food and vegetables and berries and things like that. So I'm curious to see what the continued intersection between those two worlds are, and I'm sure there's a lot of opportunity there between food and beauty. And I think brand collaborations in those spaces in the future are going to become pretty interesting. But that's my take on it. So, well, we don't have to belabor this all day, but our hope is that you took away some key nuggets, and we would love to hear from you, leaving comments on any of the sites where you're consuming your podcasts, to tell us a little bit about your experience, either as a consumer or as a marketer of skincare, or just to ask us some questions. But before, as I said, we get too long-winded, let's put a bow around today's episode with Julia. You're going to take us out with the marketing mazel and of course the marketing malfunction, which is a hot button issue right now. So tell us what's going on.
All right, so for our marketing muzzle, we have Adidas's Swim Up billboard. So Havas Middle East and Jack Morton Worldwide worked together on this project, which promoted the brand's inclusive swimwear, specifically its Burkini collection. So Adidas has pledged to revolutionize its product offerings with the aim of making sports more inclusive for women. And to launch this collection of accessible swimwear, they erected a billboard on a popular Dubai beach and then invited women to dive in.
That's pretty cool. And actually, it's super timely as well. If you've been following what's going on with the Olympics, there's been a lot of controversy around the treatment of women of color. And in swimming in particular, I think that there was, women who have very natural hair, and a lot of it were basically not petitioning for, but they were saying essentially like we need bigger swim caps in order to like contain, our hair. And I think the International Olympic Committee had created limits on what they could do, and it put a lot of women in a precarious situation where like they either compete or cut off the locks that they've taken so much effort to grow. And so it's the intersection of sport and the empowerment of women continues to be a hot button issue. And you would think that more organizations and brands would like get ahead of it and do the right thing, and they're still not. So I think the timing of it, which I don't know how quickly they moved on this, but I think that's an awesome idea, and I'm intrigued to see the interaction with it. Plus, you don't have swim up billboards; that's just not a thing. So that alone is also pretty innovative. So very cool.
Yeah, I agree. And so for our marketing malfunction, this is perhaps a potential malfunction. We'll see how it plays out.
Time will tell.
Coca-Cola is changing the flavor of Coke Zero. And people are already mad. They haven't done it yet, but people are already mad. So we've talked about... Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just saying,
Yeah.
Don't mess with their Coke.
No. So we have already talked about Coke on this podcast before with the Coke energy drink. That was a flop and pulled from the shelves. So what do we think about Coke Zero's changing their recipe?
Man, history tells us, and I don't have all the dates right, but this is risky business when you mess with the most ubiquitous soda brand on the planet. Coke did this once before where they did like a bunch of taste testing because Pepsi was an emerging player and they were taking a good share of their market. And they did a blind taste test and they found that Coke thought that they had the superior product, and Pepsi thought Coke had the superior product too. Instead, Coke found that people actually blind taste test liked Pepsi more than they liked Coke. And this is, decades ago. And what they ended up doing was reformulating Coke, like not just, having an alternative, but like the core recipe was changed. And sure enough, what do you expect? They thought they were solving a problem, but instead people backlashed to the point where they very quickly abandoned ship and instead offered a secondary Coca-Cola product as the quote unquote new Coke. All of which goes to say their track record, and you also just mentioned their energy drink, is not fantastic. But that also, they've done innovations more in flavor iterations and stuff like that too, that have gone, fairly well, but like cherry Coke and stuff like that. But this is Coke Zero, so it's not the core product that they're offering. It's not the original, but I don't know.
I think Coke Zero has a pretty allegiant following. So.
It does. It is really, really a substantial part of their brand. So I think, look, if you're going to move, you got to move boldly sometimes. Coke obviously saw something that told them they needed to, but it's because of how loyal people are, you just never know how it'll hit or miss. And for their sake, hopefully the new product is great. But even if it is, that doesn't mean people are going to not miss the one that they had. And that'll be the balancing act that they have to figure out. But we'll keep an eye on that. I look forward to talking about the Coke war as we move forward. So, but that's what we have for you today. I hope you guys enjoyed talking about skincare, or rather listening to us talk about skincare. But as I mentioned before, we would love to talk about it with you as well. Be sure to subscribe if you have not, wherever it is that you get your podcasts. We look forward to hearing what it is that you have to say and talking to you again next week, where we are going to talk about the wellness industry. So we talked a lot about skincare. We're going to talk about wellness too, which is a space that's obviously very intuitive to the brain and the body, where we specialize. So thanks again for listening. And on behalf of Julia and Nicole, who will be back with us soon, we'll talk to you next week. Take care.